Welcome to TCT Today on the Road. Now, here's your host, Tom Nolan.
Welcome to TCT on the Road. We're here in Detroit, home to our station WDWO, and this is the program where we like to take a look at all the places around areas where we have a station that are just great to be in. And here in Detroit, you hear a lot on the news about how rough Detroit's at it and that sort of thing. But today we're going to take a look at some of the things that have stayed good, stayed true, and it's just going to be a great program. We're here. Behind me is the Detroit Institute of the Arts. It's a great museum that has, I think, billions of dollars worth of wonderful art pieces, historic pieces, and we're going to see a lot of cool stuff as well as other places around Detroit. So stay tuned. It's going to be a great show. You're going to see a lot of great places if you live in the Detroit area to go and visit, or even if you're going to be visiting, you'll definitely want to stop by here at the Institute of the Arts and some of the other places we're going to see today. So keep watching. We're going to go inside. Well, we've made our way inside now, and we're about to take a look around, but I want to introduce you to Pam Marcel, who's going to show us around. She's the Director of PR here at the Detroit Institute of Arts. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm so excited that you guys are here and get to see our wonderful museum.
Well, we're excited that you allowed us to come in, even on this busy day. I see lots of people looking around already, and even just walking inside, it's a beautiful building. I can see some great works of art off to the side. I'm excited to go take a look, but tell us a little bit about what we're going to see today.
Well, what I'll show you is some of the highlights. It's a little difficult to do in a short time, but our Diego Rivera in Detroit Industry murals. We have a lot of European art that's Christian themed. We have contemporary art, we have modern. I think people will be very surprised at the breadth and how much we have here in Detroit.
Well, that's great. I can't wait to see it. I know this is one of the top art collections in the country. And tell us a little bit about the history of the museum.
Well, we actually were established in 1885, and we moved to this building that you see right now in 1927. And we are considered among the top 5 art museums in the U.S., and some of our collections are the best in the world, actually. So we're really proud of it. We have actually free general museum admission for the Tri-County residents in this Detroit area, and we're open until 10 o'clock every Friday night with live music and lots of things to do for families and kids and everybody.
Well, that sounds great. I know if you're in the Detroit area, you're going to want to stop by and check it out for yourself, or if you find yourself visiting Detroit, it's something you want to see. But we're going to go show you just a little bit of the museum right now, so let's go take a look.
For those of you who aren't familiar with the DIA, it is actually one of the top 5 museums in the country. With our collections, it's an encyclopedic collection, meaning that we have works from every culture and every time period. And one of the things that we're really known for is being one of the most visitor-friendly museums, probably in the world. Right now, I'm going to take you to one of the centerpieces of the museum, the beautiful Detroit Industry frescoes by Mexican artist Diego Rivera. Right now, we're in what many people consider the heart of the museum. This room is 4 walls of frescoes by Mexican-American artist Diego Rivera. They're called Detroit Industry, and they were commissioned by Etzel Ford, and Rivera did them in 1932 and 33. He was given the commission, and the only stipulation was the fact that it had to be something about Detroit and Detroit industry. So Rivera, as you can see, weaves in elements of agriculture. There's a baby and a bulb up here, and he considered agriculture the first industry. The wall behind me shows the Ford River Rouge plant, and it's the assembly line. Now, there was some controversy because Rivera was a communist, and he portrayed this assembly line in his idealized world with all the races and ethnicities working together. So, as you see, they are working pretty much in harmony, and Rivera loved the rhythm and the machinery. In reality, the the African Americans and probably the Italians, a lot of the Europeans got the worst jobs, like in the foundry, but this was his idealized vision. You can see some of the machines that kind of look like robots. Those are patterned after ancient Aztec gods. So Rivera was very conscious of his culture while he was planning these out, and he wanted to weave those elements in. On this other wall, it's the final assembly, and as you can see behind me, the car is being put together. Well, Rivera wove in a lot of kind of humorous elements. At the Ford Rouge plant, there are tours that people can take. So he figured that just the people who were more middle class, bourgeoisie as he called them, were the people who could afford to take these tours. So if you look at the wall and you see the group of people watching the car being put together, those are modeled mostly after cartoon characters. If you look closely, you can see Dick Tracy, you can see Charlie Chan, and the Katzenjammer Kids. Another thing on this wall, I mentioned that this was commissioned by Edsel Ford, and he always put a portrait of his patrons in his works. So as you can see, there's a portrait of Edsel Ford in the gray suit and the director at that time. Right now we're in what I call the superstar gallery. It's not a technical term, but this is a lot of the modern artists such as Van Gogh and Rodin, Cézanne, Renoir, and it's very popular. Right now I'm standing in front of a work by Van Gogh that is the first Van Gogh painting ever to enter a U.S. museum's collection. We got it in 1922, so we were really on the forefront of collecting this type of art. We have another Van Gogh here called The Diggers. And we actually have 4 Van Gogh paintings, which is very, very good for a U.S. museum. I'll show you another one in the next gallery. One of the things that I really want people to know about with the DIA is we are really considered one of the most visitor-friendly museums, and we have a lot of materials that you can read on your own or take your own tour that tell you about art. And it's not like you're being taught to, you know, you don't have to memorize facts and figures, but it really is just gives you an idea of what to look at in a painting. So this talks about how the transition from the artists who were very realistic painters to what they considered modern at the time. And one of the panels here I'd just like to point out is about how all the artists I mentioned shape people's views of modern art. And then we have something that's extremely popular with kids. These are scattered throughout the galleries. Actually, adults love them too. They're called I Spy. So what it does is it gives you a little clue here about an element of a work of art. And if you can't get it from that, you lift the panel up and it gives you a visual clue. So not only is this fun for kids and it helps them get some of their energy out, but it also gets them to look at art. So all of the things that we have in here are very thought through as to get people to understand and try to make the really personal connections with art. Now I would really like to show you this other Van Gogh. is the other Van Gogh painting that we talked about, this that I mentioned earlier. This is a beautiful landscape, and we're very fortunate to have it here at the museum. The other paintings in here are also by Rodin and Renoir, and we have beautiful paintings of the ballet from Edgar Degas. The Thinker that we have out front by Auguste Rodin, we also have a wonderful sculpture here called Eve by Rodin as well. I'm really excited to show you our one painting by Monet. And while we might just have one, it's really a good one. This is called Gladioli, and as you can see, it's a scene in a garden, which Monet was very famous for, and it is one of his better works. We also have, very popular among our little girls, a painting called The Nut Gatherers. And as you can see, it's two little girls sharing secrets, and I think a lot of kids go back to their childhood. A lot of adults like it, and they kind of, it evokes a lot of memories. It's also one of our best sellers in the museum shop. And we also, to help people understand, this gallery here is about transitions from different types of art, from the more traditional to the more modern. And we have this label here that asks questions like, how can you tell which painting here is more traditional, which is more modern? So it asks you a series of questions, then it gives you the answer. But the idea is to get people to think about what they're looking at and also learn something that's really interesting about different styles and different artists. This is a painting by Peter Bruegel. It's one of only 2 large Bruegels in the U.S., and it's called The Wedding Dance. And historically, in the art world, it's probably our most valuable painting. It depicts the scene of a wedding party after the wedding when peasants are having lots of fun eating and drinking and dancing. And to help people understand, we have another thing we call it like a label interpretive piece that helps people understand some of the symbolism. So you can see that the bride, it talks about she's the only one with no head covering, and talks about peasant life and other things that help you look back at the painting and see more meaning in it than just the surface. Well, no visit would be complete without eating and shopping. And right now, I'm in a space, it's one of our 2 restaurants, and we refer to this as our cultural living room, because besides good food and beverages, we have iPads that people can use. People use this as a place to socialize, and it's a good place just to take a little break. We also have a museum shop with wonderful items that you can have mementos of your visit, or also great gifts. I really want to say how much fun that I've had today. It's wonderful showing you all around our museum, and I encourage every one of you to visit on your own and make your own connections and explore until you can't explore anymore. If you'd like to know what's going on at any given time at the museum, please just visit our website at dia.org. Thanks again.
Well, our next stop today here in Detroit is the Tuskegee Airmen National Historic Museum. And of course, the Tuskegee Airmen are a great group of people, the first African-American military aviation group. And so their museum is located here in Detroit, right in Fort Wayne. And I'm so very honored today to be speaking with one of the original Tuskegee Airmen, Mr. Frederick Henry. How are you doing today, sir?
Fine.
Well, I notice on your hat it says DOTA, and you got a little different hat than everybody else. You're one of the documented original Tuskegee Airmen, and it is very much my honor to be able to speak with you and hear about some of your experiences.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for taking the time to meet with us. Now, if you could just tell us a little bit maybe about your experience. I know that not only were you part of the first African American military aviation group, but part of that was not that segregation had ended and all of a sudden they were allowing African Americans to take place, but there was still very much segregation going on in the military. So tell me a little bit about how you dealt with that and your experiences in the military.
Well, when I first went into the military, we had segregation right here in the city of Detroit. And I was used to that. They used to ask me why you want to be in the service, because we don't want blacks here, period. And they would call us the N-word every day. But we had been used to that, and so I didn't pay it any attention because I know that I couldn't go to certain places, so I didn't go. You took your heart in your hand when you left the post. You were okay on the post, but the high sheriff, he didn't like blacks at all. But he and I become good friends because they had a thing that either work or fight. So we had a lot of trouble with the white people in that area on account of segregation. They didn't want blacks there at all. But things have changed, and it's better now.
Well, that's great, and you were part of a group that really helped move forward a lot of the views on people. Not only were the Tuskegee Airmen the first to do what they did, but you guys were very successful, hundreds of medals of all different types earned, so that's really amazing. Did you have any firsthand, I know you weren't one of the pilots, but you were one of the MPs. Did you have any first-hand experience with the war?
No, I didn't go overseas. But I had a lot of trouble with white people that telling us, you know, you can't do this, you can't do that. But we knew what we had to do, and we knew what we could do. So we got by that way. But we opened up the doors for a lot of blacks in the military. Of course, like you say, there's still segregation. Some people just won't give up.
Unfortunately, racism just doesn't seem to go away completely, but we thank you for the steps you've made towards it. Tell us a little bit about your, I know you were an MP and you did some other things while in the military. So tell us a little bit about what you did during your time in the military.
At the time, see, I was the first one there. There was no barracks, but nothing but tents. And after they started building the barracks, then we had to put foliage around the barracks and flowers, fix up the gates and make it look presentable. And after that, I got on the guard squadron. Then they put me in the NP force. The place was segregated at first. Of course, the first commander, he didn't believe in blacks doing anything, but later on we got a colonel that over the post that believed in letting blacks have a chance. So it got to be a real nice place to stay after that.
Well, that's wonderful, and thank you again so much for taking the time to meet with us today and tell us a little bit about the history of the Tuskegee Airmen. But here at the museum, there's also a lot of great artifacts and things to see, so I want to show our viewers, and we'll take a look around now.
All right, thank you for talking to me.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm standing here now with Brian Smith, the president of the museum here. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine, and you?
I'm doing very well. This is great to be standing in here and speaking with some of the original Tuskegee Airmen and everything we've seen here. Tell me a little bit about the museum and what you guys do here.
The museum is a history of the Tuskegee Airmen from just before World War II to after World War II. It was built by the Tuskegee Airmen. A lot of the artifacts came from Tuskegee Airmen. The uniforms you see in the display cases were donated by the original airmen. the city of Detroit lent a very helping hand with their curators and their archivists. We are open to young people, especially trying to get them inspired to do careers in aviation, and we want to tell the history of the Tuskegee Airmen accurately and loudly.
Well, that's great, and it's fabulous already just looking around some of the uniforms you mentioned and the great artifacts here. Tell us a little bit about some of the things we're going to see today.
Sure. If we could start on this wall here, one of my favorite Tuskegee Airmen, Colonel Walter Downs. He was actually a group commander. He was instrumental teacher in Detroit public school system. Very seldom talked about his exploits in World War II. And he donated 3 uniforms. He flew the P-51 with the 332nd and was one of the first airmen to discover the jet stream. They were on a mission, a training mission, and they were supposed to be over a target at a certain time, and they were actually going east to west. And he discovered that they were not where they should be based on pilotage navigation, and called the mission off so they wouldn't run out of fuel before they got to their destination. He was a very smart and caring commander.
Well, that's great. Well, let's go take a look around.
Sure. What we're seeing now is the front windshield of ME-109 and the control stick from a ME-109. That was the enemy aircraft the Tuskegee Airmen fought against. And this one appears to have 3 indentions from bullets hitting, as it seemed to be a head-on strafing run. But we doubt that because the airmen realized the ME-109 had cannons, 30mm cannons, and one shell from a cannon could tear up a P-51, so they seldom took them head-on. Most likely it was a gunner in a bomber that actually was shooting at this fighter as the fighter was coming in to shoot down the bomber. In this display case, again, the contents donated by Walter Downs. You have a flight jacket, and we've actually had a company reproduce this flight jacket, even using the same goat skin material, and I'm very proud when I wear that jacket. This display case depicts the survival kit that a pilot would carry with him on a mission. He would have enough stuff to fish if he needed to, start a fire, measure distances. He has a map that's actually on a handkerchief, extra pair of underwear, socks, and of course the boots that he would wear. Interestingly, he's got how to learn Italian, the quickest way to learn Italian, because that's most likely where he would land in Italian territory. The photograph that you're looking at now is of 3 airmen holding up 3 fingers with a sign above the door that says the 3-Minute Egg Club. This was a special club of airmen who got back to base with 3 or less minutes of fuel in their fuel tank. So they were on the verge of running out of fuel and having to ditch the airplane somewhere over enemy territory or over the ocean. In order for the Tuskegee Airmen to be successful, it took a number of ground crew. The crew chief actually owned the aircraft. The Tuskegee pilot borrowed the aircraft to go on a mission. In this photograph here, we see an armor bearer holding a .50 caliber machine gun. He'll install it in the aircraft, make sure it's aimed properly. They actually would jack the tail up and fire the guns at a target a certain distance away from the airplane to make sure that the bullets were on target. In the next picture depicting the ground crews, you see several airmen around this P-51, and they're doing pre-flight checks or maintenance to make sure that the aircraft is in tip-top shape as it goes out on a mission. These aircraft had to perform at the top of their performance limits in order to be successful in a dogfight. And in this photograph, you see the crew chief doing the final touches, actually cleaning the windshield for Charles Lester here. And you see the 3 swastikas on his aircraft, indicating he has shot down 3 German aircraft.
That was just amazing. The Tuskegee Airmen National Historical Museum, and what a great sacrifice that they all made for fighting and fighting well for their country and really advancing civil rights for everybody in this country. And it's just an amazing place to see, and as I mentioned, located right here in historic Fort Wayne in Detroit. The fort is behind me, and there's a lot of other cool stuff to see here besides the Tuskegee Airmen Museum being one of the great sites, but lots of the old barracks and many things to check out while you're here visiting. So you're definitely going to want to come take a look for yourself. But that's all the time we have for the program. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, making our way around Detroit, seeing some of the great sites here in the area. And if you want to support TCT and programs like this, we are a viewer-supported network. I would encourage you to support us the best way you can by writing to P.O. Box 1010, Marion, Illinois 62959. If you're viewing in Canada today, you can write to P.O. Box 1220 for Erie, Ontario L2A 5Y2, or you can do it right online, tct.tv. It's a great website to check out. You can watch video on demand and find out a little bit more about TCT. So thank you for being with us on the program. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time on the road.
Thank you for watching today's special program. Please send your support to TCT, Box 1010, Marion, Illinois 62959. May God richly bless you and your family today.